What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Idaho Rifleman. Today we're going to do some chronograph readings between 308 Winchester and 7.62 NATO. While they're widely regarded as the same cartridge, there are actually some differences. Just like there's differences between 5.56 and 223. With the 7.62 NATO, from everything that I've read, studied, and learned about the cartridges, and I don't have mics or calipers or anything like that to actually go and measure this. This is just information that I'm reading and trying to learn as much as I can. 7.62 NATO, you're looking at a maximum chamber pressure of around 50,000 psi. The chamber is slightly longer than that of 308 by about 0.010 or 0.012, depending on the article you read. And the case wall is just ever so slightly thicker than that of 308, and that's to the internal dimension. So there's less room inside that casing for powder. By that logic, the projectile itself is also probably a little bit smaller, but by minute increments. The 308 Winchester maximum chamber pressure is around 62,000 psi. Now, some sources you read say 2,000 psi difference, some say 12,000 psi difference. So it really depends on the age of the firearm, the manufacturer, and the materials they used. If they use cheaper metal, then you're more likely to have an issue than higher grade metal. So this is just something that I wanted to talk about with you guys, and we'll measure the difference velocity wise. But keep that in mind when you go out and if you're looking at rifles chambered in 7.62 NATO versus 308 Winchester. There could be some difference, and it could be enough to cause an issue. What I will say from a legal standpoint, my advice to you, even though I can't give you legal advice or anything like that, just shoot what your gun is actually marked and chambered to shoot. Avoid any issues that way. That being said, we're going to use the Stevens 334 308 to shoot both rounds. That way we have a controlled test for your benefit. We're going to use Winchester M80 7.62 NATO. This is promising 2,790 FPS with a 149 grain full metal jacket. Federal PowerShock 308 Winchester, muzzle velocity 2,820 with a 150 grain soft point. So let's head over to the range and we'll get started. Alright, we got 1 in the chamber, 3 in the magazine. That's the maximum capacity of this rifle. So we're going to do a 4-round average, starting with 7.62 by 51, M80, 149 grain full metal jacket. Aim a little high so I don't shoot the chronograph. 2,795. 2,785, 2,793, 2,838. Now let's switch to 308 Winchester. .308 Winchester, 150 grain PowerShock. $2,769. 2,830. 2,805. 2,841. We'll average those up and I'll put them on the screen right here. Alright everybody, that's going to wrap up this week's episode of Idaho Rifleman with the 308 Winchester versus 7.62 by 51 chronograph readings. The velocity very, very similar. By the time it was all said and done and averaged out, there was only a couple of points difference. But I think it's important to note that that's velocity, not chamber pressure. 308 is capable of producing much higher chamber pressures. That's why they're rated for 62,000 psi, whereas the 7.62 by 51 NATO is only rated for 50,000. 12,000 point difference there. Is it enough to cause a catastrophic failure in your rifle? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that question, but I think that it's worth noting and being very, very cautious of, and it is not something I would recommend putting a 308 Winchester round through a 7.62 by 51 NATO chamber. Someone correct me if I'm wrong on that, but from all the research I've done and from what I've seen, I personally wouldn't recommend doing that. It is something that I've done in the past because I didn't know any better at the time, and thankfully nothing happened. There was no catastrophic failures or anything, but chamber pressures aren't something to mess with. We've seen that with other videos from other channels, that chamber pressure is nothing to mess with. So I would strongly recommend that you don't do it. But again, that's just me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, found it informative, found it interesting. Be sure to give it a like and leave a comment. Let me know what you thought about the video. Make sure you're following the channel here, and be sure to check out the Idaho Rifleman on Facebook and Instagram. As always, I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Take care, stay safe, and God bless. We'll see you next time here on Idaho Rifleman. See if I can get through this without stepping all over my tongue again. Take 897. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Idaho Rifleman.